of reality.
Right. Yeah.
And
That's fine.
and Susie will be some follow-up questions, and then we'll open it up to everyone. And I think you were all here yesterday, so you know. So let's go ahead and have a wonderful session again with Burt.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to talk about this. And thank you for saying to be able to do it today. So I can start right now? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. About 3 years ago, I was giving a video with my daughter, Deborah, who teaches meditation. And she had visited me after 25 years of absence. So we did some fun videos together. But one time I was asked, Burt, what have you learned in 50 years of doing spiritual work? What have you learned? In other words, what is it that, you know? So anyway, so my answer was very brief. And I said, what I learned is to trust, which I am. No, to trust I am. That was it, right? So then as a result of saying that the whole thing was to trust I am, a lot of people asked later, but through emails, through different letters, phone calls, they said, what do you mean trusting I am? In other words, what do you mean by I am? Or how do you trust? Because of the amount of letters that I received, I decided that I'll wait until my daughter Deborah leaves and I'll be alone, and then I'll go home and write an article based on that question. So that night I went to bed thinking about what to write, what to do, but something took over. By 3 o'clock in the morning, I felt I was forced to get up and go to a board that I had on the wall and write the 4 unknown facts of reality. Now, I wasn't ready for all that, but it seemed to take over. Now, some people have asked me, did you hear a voice? Well, yes and no. In the beginning, I thought it was my own intuition talking, but then I found that I was saying things that somehow contradicted my own way of looking. And so I would argue with it. And the moment I realized that I was arguing with it and it was winning all the time, then it was something very powerful not to argue with. And so I had to listen to it. In order to listen to it completely, I turned off the phone. I just a regular phone. I didn't have a iPhone. Well, iPhone, right? I didn't have a cell phone, right? And I made sure that nobody would call me. I didn't want to answer the phone. And I didn't want to spend any time actually going to bed, sleeping, or doing anything until that article was written. So I had some bananas at home and I thought I'd eat them until I'm satisfied. And if I had to sleep, well, I go and meditate instead. But I didn't realize that the book took about 7 days to be written. In those 7 days, I never stopped typing. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the screen for so many hours that actually my eyes went completely blind. But I had to lie down for about a day and my sight returned enough to function. The 4 unknown facts of reality is something that completely blew me away because I found out later that it simplified Course in Miracles itself, which I hadn't completely read or known yet. So, but I was also surprised because in it, I found every answer that I ever asked in my life was answered in that 4 unknown facts. The reason I also call it four unknown facts of reality is because they're totally unknown. I never knew anybody who knew about them. I didn't know anybody. So I figure it's totally unknown by everyone. Anyway, so I'd like to go through these four now, but I would love it if you totally pay attention to them, because it can literally change your life, your way of thinking, your way of looking at things. And I know for a fact, because the last 3 years I've been thinking about nothing else but this book, which incidentally is published. But to me, it's a treasure chest. So now let's start with number one, okay? Number one unknown fact. Number one unknown fact was given to me as a vast energy, unbounded energy that never makes a mistake. It's totally wise and totally perfect and totally loving unconditionally. It's perfect in every way, in other words. And the thing about this energy is that it contains all the wisdom of the ages, so to speak. Now, I wanted to call it God, but the voice said no, because if you call it God, then people will start thinking it's a religion. So it's best to leave, not to call it anything per se. So, and then I said, well, how about calling it love, because it is love? He says, yes, but love is unlimited. There's no limit to love. And the only way the people think about love is the way they see love, the way they conceptualize it. So that wasn't right. So the word that was given to me is this: call it emptiness, a vast emptiness. Immediately, the moment I heard it, I didn't like the word. And so I said, well, I could call it the emptiness, maybe the emptiness of thought, of the emptiness of mind. And it seemed to be pleased, and we went on from there. The important thing about this emptiness is that it encompasses every facet of life, every thought, every action. All being is contained within that point. Now I'm just trying to make it as simple as I can. When we think of emptiness, we think of a void. It is not a void, because emptiness means that everything that is good and perfect is void. It also showed me how everything that is positive is void. For example, think of love itself. Think of it, and you cannot even think of it. It's a feeling. There's no thought in it. There's nothing that you can see in it. It's totally without, how would you call that? Without any definition. For example, if you think of hate, there is something that you hate. If there is anger, well, there's something that you're angry about. If you grieve, it's something that's happened in the past. If you feel anything that is negative cannot be empty, because it's always based on something or some source. But emptiness is based on nothing. And the reason the word emptiness was chosen, it is because emptiness has no beginning and no end. And it is also devoid of thought in particular. So when a person is empty, they're living in joy and love and peace and happiness. It also showed me how everything that a person wants, everything that a person needs is always for one reason only. Whether you want a car, whether you want a home, whether you want to meet the right person, whether you want to be a millionaire, whatever it is that you want, ultimately, I'll ask you, why do you want it? And you will say, because it makes me happy. But here's the paradox. The happiness won't last when you have what you want, because the wanting will never stop. But what is also important is that happiness is not something that is based on achievement. It is itself complete, because happiness and love are both the same. Happiness might seem to be personal, and love might seem to be a little bit more, more divided, so to speak. But the two, happiness and love, are both the same. So what we're talking about here, emptiness, is love itself. But that love is not something that can be defined as loving. It is seeing the connection of all life, all as one. Now, what is interesting about the emptiness also is that it has another part, unknown fact, which I call number two. Number two unknown fact is this, and I didn't know it because I studied psychology, that emptiness is the greatest fear of mankind. And nobody loves emptiness unless they awaken to it. It told me that the moment you awaken yourself to understand emptiness, the very love of that emptiness begins your total wisdom, your total clarity of everything that happens. It simply seems to take over your own being nature, which it is, of course, because emptiness is your being. It is totally empty, like your spirit. It's empty. Now we're talking about number two. Number two unknown fact is this: your greatest suffering is the fear of emptiness. I didn't know it before. I had no idea. I always gave it some other fear, some other condition. For example, what is the greatest fear of mankind? It is fear of death. Because when we think of emptiness, we think that when we die, we're no more. And we always live with that fear of being no more, or someday disappearing. But of course, disappearance is not possible. So therefore, this is the beauty of emptiness, is that it cannot be conceptualized. And the reason that spirit voice told me to use it is because when you use it, you have to like it or lump it, you see? But if you want to learn from it, you have to learn to see it for what it is, which means you will learn to love it, because it would show you that it is everything that is full, not full of, because it's empty, but it's full of love, full of joy, full of happiness, full of meaning itself. It is being itself. So the definition of being is really emptiness. Read something from Krishnamurti here.
Okay, here's a quote. I think most of us are aware, perhaps only rarely, since most of us are so terribly occupied and active. But I think we are aware sometimes that the mind is empty. And being aware, we are afraid of that emptiness. We have never inquired into that state of emptiness. We have never gone into it deeply, profoundly. And this is a quote from Krishnamurti.
Yeah. So this is it, the fear of emptiness. And number two, like I said, it is emptiness itself, which creates our greatest fear. Think of anything that is fearful, and you'll find that it has emptiness in it. We're always afraid of being no more, of being nothing, of being, you see, this is the greatest fear. Now, when we begin to see the beauty of it by going into number one, it will begin to automatically alter, remove or not remove, but rather replace the fear. So every time you see it's the grandeur of it, it replaces the fear. You see, automatically. So in truth, when you're afraid, that fear is not something wrong. It is simply the other side of love. When if you run away from fear, we get sick. All known diseases of mankind, first, especially mentally, okay, are what fear has done to the psyche. The more you are afraid of something and you run away from it, you try to escape from it, it gets worse and worse. But what happens is that if you understand it, the very fear itself, it will take you back into the very absence or the nothingness of the spirit itself. See, so what we fear actually is also spirit, the nothingness of spirit, the emptiness of spirit. Another interesting part is number three. Number three, a known fact of reality, is a wonderment in itself. And it gives us one simple word to heal all ills. And it overcomes all mental problems, all emotions. We go to psychiatrists and spend so many hundreds of dollars. We go to psychologists, we read books on how to overcome certain problems or fears. But when you know this number three, everything gets resolved. And I've been using the four unknown facts of reality ever since it was written. You know. Now, what is number three? Are we all listening? It is forgiveness. Forgiving yourself the moment you begin to think in a negative way. And the moment you do, something is replaced, and that is replaced by love. Try it and see it. Now, how do you, the point is now, how do you begin to forgive? Forgive yourself. Well, here's an interesting thing, that no matter how you feel, that feeling has come, what is, if we're talking about a negative feeling here, fear, a feeling of fear. That happened because somehow or other there was some emptiness in it. Like, for example, some people say, I suffered so much fear, I wanted to kill myself. I suffered from emptiness so much that I wanted to kill myself. I felt so empty. But here's the paradox. If that person was courageous enough, was strong enough to stop and look at the very thing that made them feel empty, if they were to see it for what it is, they'll find it is replaced by something very dear, known as love of self. And that becomes the healing. And it is also said and told me that it is able to heal everything, every known mental and physical disease. Now, forgiveness is something that you don't say, I forgive. As a matter of fact, it's simplified by A Course in Miracles, which I was very pleased to see the similarity. It says, in order to forgive, you need to do one thing, to see that there's nothing to forgive. Because how you feel about another or the world is how you feel about yourself. Nothing is ever separate. Everything, like I said, is interconnected, interdependent, interrelated. So therefore, how you feel, that very feeling itself is your way of seeing. And at that moment, your seeing is based on everybody that you see and the world itself, how you feel. But when you see that it's in you and you begin to understand it, you also begin to see that there's really nothing to forgive here, except how I began to feel about myself, what I think about who I think I am. This is how fear is created. Did you know that fear has no basis? As you begin to know the truth, like I said, the greatest fear of mankind is death. Death in many of its forms. But in truth, nothing dies. And when we know the truth and face the fear, see that there's nothing to forgive, it becomes love. So also everything is jumping back to love all the time. Every time that we are faced with anything at all that disturbs us, and we look at it, and then we see that there's nothing to forgive in it because it's all in our mind, and how it came about, it's up to us in order to look at how we've been thinking and feeling, etc. When we imagine and see the clarity of it, that very clarity itself will make you forgive it. The moment you really forgive it, you feel an ease and beauty you never thought was possible. And that is something that is experienced. I remember the first time you told me you experienced forgiving yourself and how you felt, right?
Mhm.
And of course, when I talk about forgiveness, I'm not talking about doing it once. Sometimes it could be a major thing that has been eating at you for a long time, and finally forgive it. And the moment you really do, there is such an ease and such peace that will come into your life. You can't even believe it. You feel so good. See, so that's number 3. Number 4 is called trust. So what happens is that yesterday, for example, we gave the 5 ways in which we learn how to make something real. By, okay, how did they go?
The first one is to be repeated many times,
Right,
but then to be looked at seriously, then to be considered more and more with many reservations, then to be seen as true in many, many, many cases, and then to finally be accepted as the truth.
right. And finally, when it's accepted as the truth, it becomes a part of our life. And that trust itself, because you know it's real. You see, and the beautiful thing about the 4 unknown effects of reality, once you start working at it, you'll find it is the simplest thing in the world. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing even to understand, because the moment you become quiet and allow it, you find, wow, this is common sense. How come it escaped me? How come I didn't know it? See, with all my psychology reading, and I read hundreds of books, at least, I found, wow, how come it's so simple? And I've never run across something that simple. So when you begin to trust it, you begin to trust the I am of you. The I am of you, which means you are I am. Your name is I am. My name is I am. Everybody's name is I am. When Moses went up to the mountain and asked God, what is your name? And God said, I am that I am. Okay, so the I am is a divine name. But when you say I am Mary or I am Burt, then you've lost it and you made it individual and you made it separate. But the I am is your complete you, which is found in every part of everyone else, because we are all the same inside our being. You see, so when you say I am, see how powerful that is? It's unbelievable. I am. and you trust it. And the moment you start trusting that, you'll find that everything becomes clear, everything in your life. Now, this is more or less the simplicity of the 4 unknown facts. But I'm sure that there are hundreds of questions your mind is running through, and I would like to hear them. If I start talking about the 4 unknown facts, I will never end. For example, one time we had a discussion on emptiness, and we discussed it all day long, trying to see the simplicity of it until it became very clear that emptiness is our greatest joy and our greatest happiness. And then we find that when we are in fear, emptiness is our greatest fear. And the two seem to be in opposites, but they're not. And here we see the very intelligence of being, that we learn from our own suffering. We learn from our own mistakes. From what is negative is found the positive. Why is it like this? Because we are here on earth to learn the hard way, maybe. But this is how we learn. And there is no other way of learning. Absolutely none. So now I would like to have your feedback and tell me what you think about this whole thing, about this whole understanding. It is very simple and it is not hard to understand, but if you ask me certain questions, I'll be able to answer you and show you its simplicity. Do we all understand what is meant by emptiness? The first thing to think about in emptiness is an empty mind. An empty mind is not an imbecile. It's not an idiot. An empty mind is peace. It's tranquility. Actually, it's a fullness of being. When you're happy, your mind is not worried, is not concerned, is not thinking about tomorrow or yesterday. It is completely present. It is completely now. And when your mind is now, it is not thinking, because thinking always pertains to past and future, you see? And thinking is the only thing that disturbs your system. But when the mind is quiet, totally quiet, then it has access to its non-thinking. When you go to the point of non-thinking, you arrive at pure awareness. Pure awareness is the highest knowledge known. And when you refer to that knowledge, which is the knowledge of everything, really, when you refer to that knowledge, then you have the answers, and the answers are very clear. Love. There is nothing but love. But love is not an emotion. So can I have some questions?
I have a question. Yesterday you said consciousness is not the ultimate reality. So is emptiness the ultimate reality?
Absolutely.
And it's prior consciousness.
Because it's prior consciousness, right. It is prior consciousness because emptiness is beyond time and space. And you might say, but we live in time and space. That is correct. So the consciousness we experience is full of concepts, it's full of levels of understanding. It's full of highs and lows, and therefore it's controlled by the ego. So when science says, well, there came the Big Bang, you see, and then creation was created, that's the materialist viewpoint. They think that matter created consciousness, which is unbelievable. I studied psychology, and in psychology, I learned that it's the brain that produces consciousness. Wow. And I believed it, okay? No, consciousness came from pure awareness. Pure awareness was first, but pure awareness has no time, therefore there was no beginning in it. This means that since you are pure awareness yourself, can you imagine how grand you really are? It blows you away how marvelous you really are. So this means that you had no beginning and you'll never know an end. And the intelligence that is within you is perfect. The moment you go into silence and perceive that moment of no thought, and then when you go into no thought, absolutely into total emptiness, okay, you begin to feel it in your heart. It just starts talking to you. So this is how the four unknown facts came to me, because I was very much unsure of many things, but somehow or other, I wanted the answers. When I was asked, Burt, what have you learned? I said to myself, really, what have I learned? And then it came to me, I've learned to trust I am. And that which I am is everyone living. And that is complete. That is every question answered right there. I had a woman come all the way from China. And I was in China teaching both in Beijing and Shanghai, right? And this woman came, anyway, did you know where she came from?
Beijing.
Beijing, yeah. Okay, but she attended my classes when I was there. She came all the way to be with me to spend 3 days. She stayed in a hotel, knowing that if she met me, she would wake up. And of course, I told her about the four unknown facts. We discussed many points. And then at the end, you made a list of the most difficult questions that I could ask her after 3 days together. And I asked them of her. And she answered in complete simplicity. I made her close her eyes. I pointed my finger to her forehead so that you focus on total oneness. And then the answer will come. The answer came to her. And at the end that we finished that exam that I gave her 24 questions, and she answered them beautifully, I started to cry because I was so moved by the whole thing. And she said, did I get it, Burt? And I said, oh, yes, you got it. And she went back to China. I'm hoping that she will visit us or we come to know her. And I was also hoping that she'll be attending these talks. Anyway, what I'm saying here is that it took very short while in her, because why did it happen? Because she trusted me. But you might say, Burt, aren't you talking from ego here? Because she trusted you, she awake? No. She didn't wake up because she trusted me. Because by trusting me, she trusted herself. She believed it completely and she was open. And in that openness, she received. You see how simple it all is? It's like almost turning back to childhood. The greatest beauty of a child is its innocence. You see, which is, of course, a silent mind. Did you know why we love dogs? I'm laughing because Susan, she's surrounded by little puppies. They're always coming and wanting to play with her and be with her and kiss her, like I do. And why does this happen? Because did you know that dogs can feel the ones who love them? They can understand the heart. I didn't know that until after I was write this book. Nature has a lot of understanding too. See, everything in nature has that beauty, has that inner knowing too. They might not talk, but they respond to it. One time a person came over and he said, Burt, he said, yes, I had plants and they were dying on me. And then one day he said, well, what if I start to pray to them or love them? And I say, I love you to the plant. I said, try it, see what happens. And it started to bloom. This is fact. So we are all open to that power that is in every one of us, but that power is not in, it is not in the brain. You see, it is in the heart. And sometimes we place so much importance on the brain that we misuse the whole thing. We think the brain thinks, we think things. No, thoughts do not come from the brain. They come from everywhere. From everything that we've taught in the past, they come from the environment, they come from other people, you see? And many thoughts that happen to us, we're not putting them there, they just come there. But our job is to let them be and not affect us. Let them do what they want. They're not real anyway. Because you see, the first thing we do because of the fear of emptiness is that we believe every thought that comes to us. And most thoughts that come to us are usually negative. Now you wonder why so many people become sick mentally, become disturbed, become frightened. Of course, because we're believing everything that seems to happen. But once we begin to understand that we are motivated by love, our true nature is love itself. When we know that for a fact and trust it, that's called awakening. There's no final enlightenment, there's no such thing, but there is awakening. And when we awaken to the truth, we find peace. But the peace has always been there. We did not achieve it. We simply were able to see it. And that's the whole point. Now, like I said, the four unknown facts of reality is very simple and very direct. I did not write it, but I'm totally overjoyed of the fact that it came through me. It's not selling as well as I had hoped at all, but I can understand. Because one thing also, when the Course in Miracles was written, Jesus said about the Course in Miracles, he said, this is not going to be a popular book. Many people are afraid of it, but the moment they start reading it and start getting to know it, then you start loving it. Because, and the reason is this, that all truth is written en masse. It is about you, but you are not a person. You are not an individual. You are a totality. You are a wholeness. So when the Course pointed to you, it wasn't talking to you personally, it was talking to you as a oneness. And so that's when we begin to understand. Yeah.
Pete has a question.
Oh, who?
Pete.
Pete.
Mm.
Yes, Pete?
Hello, thank you. Hello, good morning, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
There he is.
And Burt. My question is, well, firstly, I want to thank you for the book. Reading it confirmed my experience of last year, and reading it again this morning, because I'm in Australia, it's a whole new book, having spent yesterday with you. So to going back again and read, yeah. Without going into great detail because of the time, understand now what happened in those times, lying in bed, feeling anger, depression, and the end. And it came of acceptance. You hear the trees blowing outside. You hear the subtlety of life, and an ease came over. Reading it in your book, and I'm getting emotional now thinking of it, a whole understanding of what I went through and what I got through. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
My question.
Love you.
Love you too. Love you all. My question has to do with us who are in healthcare or supporting other people. The West, Freud, Jung, they've spent so much time in this mind studying people that are unwell, whereas the East has traveled up they've always looked at meditators. They've looked at people that I wonder, that dichotomy, that split, how we operate in the Western world, those of us using hypnosis or other modes, how do we cut through the noise of the psychologists, psychiatrists, this model which we have right now?
Thank you. Beautiful question. In the West, we are very intellectual. And so many discoveries have been made about thought, about the different things. But that doesn't mean they're not true. They are true, but they're convoluted. For example, you talk to someone who's an intellectual. What happens with intellectual? When I say intellectual, it means we use our heads instead of our hearts. We begin to think with words like why? Why does this happen? Why does it happen? Now, the moment you start using why, you're caught in it. And you're so caught in it that you cannot live unless something makes sense. But did you know that things don't have to make sense if they make you feel good? And so this is the point, always to be led by love. But the mind always takes over. This is called the ego mind, you see? It always takes over. Now, in the West, we're very much caught in the mind. But also, one other thing too, is that with age, we go into what is called third dimensions. Like when we lived in the third dimension, we were completely physical. The world was totally physical. There was no way that they could understand what the hell I'm talking about. And then when we reached the fourth level, the fourth stage, that was the hippie age, I call it. This is make love, not war. This is when we begin to think for ourselves. This is when the feminine principle came into power. You see, initially in the third dimension, during the war and fighting, we were very physical. We were so physical, in fact, that when we were married, the man ruled the roost. He told the woman what to do. He was in control. Well, in the fourth dimension, especially in the West, the woman started to take control. Okay, and now it's more or less even. But I find that most women are far more intelligent than men, as a rule, spiritually. Okay, I'm not trying to be one or the other, but why is it that many women are become teachers now? Because the feminine principle is the sensitive principle, the heart. A man is more directed by the left brain, and the left brain is logic, and logic cannot bring you peace and happiness and love and joy. It only brings you reason, and reason cannot give you truth. And so I've had so many people, especially men in the beginning, they don't understand something and they keep arguing with me. And I don't like argument because it's so simple. I can see it. You know, how can you argue with love? Love is the only thing that makes sense. But they keep on finding ways in which, well, but I don't understand. Why does this happen? Why did this happen? Don't try to understand it. Try to feel where the love is at. And when that begins to happen, it will fall into place. You don't even have to arrive at any conclusion. It arrives by itself. But until then, always look for love. How am I loving? How am I feeling about other people? Because it is the oneness that brings the truth of being. It is we are all one, you know, like you look at me and you see me separate from you, but no, not at all. As I see you here, all of you here, I really love you all. I can feel it in my heart. But because I see you all as part of this oneness that we are. When you begin to feel that, do you need reason for that? Do you need to come to some logical conclusion that this to make sense? No. If you feel good, if you feel happy, if you feel wonderful and loving, you're in heaven. You're there. You're awakened. And it's that simple. And thank you, Peter, for what you said. I love it. Thank you very much. Do you have a question, honey?
Yeah, I have a question or something you brought up yesterday when you used the word discomfort to describe the sense that we always have here.
Oh, yes, very good.
And
yeah.
And when you said, and I just like you, I was initially put off by the word emptiness. It you know, I wanted the word God, or I wanted the word love, or I wanted something else, and emptiness seemed to create a strong resistance. And then I realized that the discomfort is because we're filling ourselves with something that we're not.
That's right.
So the comfort comes from the emptiness.
Discomfort comes from the emptiness, the emptiness that we term to be negative. You see, because we think of emptiness as something wrong. I feel so empty, because we think the opposite of fullness. You see, we think it's something wrong. But if we look at emptiness, real emptiness, like no thought, how can anything negative exist? If it's empty, is a purity, pure being. You see? Yeah.
And the fear of emptiness you described being that
discomfort.
All fear is the fear of emptiness.
That's right. Yeah. And that fear is in most people a feeling of discomfort. Discomfort, the Course calls it guilt. It's a feeling as if I'm not complete. There is something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I haven't achieved it yet. First of all, we don't achieve anything because there is no time in truth. We only look and see. See? So therefore, that discomfort is because we are fighting our own time and space that we are in. But the comfort has been known by, even in the Bible, it says, I'll send you a comforter. Okay, so how many religions use the word comforter?
Quite a few. I think the ones that come out of the Abrahamic God, the God of Abraham, I think the comforter comes out.
Yeah, right.
So the other question I have is that, so the fear of emptiness, is that the fear of losing our identity because we've misidentified it? So that's the same as the fear of death, because if we're losing what we think we are, we think what we think we are is going to die, but it's not what we are.
That's right. That's right. So we have a misconception of who we think we are. And emptiness would mean that I'm losing that because I want to feel important. I want other people to love me and think I am something special. You see, we want that. And we want that because we are empty inside. So we want to fill it. We want to feel important. So we do anything to be better than another. But the moment you want to be better than another, you are worse than the other. This is the paradox. And this is where the number one, emptiness, is coming back into the two, emptiness, which is the highest suffering. So the two keep interchanging until we wake up. The moment we wake up, the two of unknown facts become number one. And we move into the number one. The number one is who we have always been, pure awareness.
And that's the case right now.
And that is the case right now. It is not going to be after this talk. It is right now as you listen. If you see it clearly, that's where you're at.
And the process of forgiveness, basically, is it recognizing the dynamic of our fear and our suffering as being an avoidance of this reality of what we are?
Fear is always wanting something.
So forgiveness is seeing that dynamic and recognizing.
Seeing that dynamic, that's right. Okay. And seeing it so clearly that all of a sudden says, but actually there's nothing to forgive here. When you see it very clearly, the moment you say to yourself, there's nothing really to forgive, immediately there is a change in you. You've forgiven it. And that very forgiving becomes a healing. I have known people who get sick very often, who develop colds one after the other. They have back problems, so many things. But the moment they start to forgive themselves and start to feel good about themselves, which means also feeling good about everyone they meet, they change. They become healthier. They become younger. Not younger in years, but younger in energy. See, because it's automatic. That's the love nature. The love nature is our highest energy.
So what's the difference between forgiveness and trust, as you describe it in your book?
Well, first of all, forgiveness is what we start out with. As a matter of fact, you will find that you're always thinking something negative because discomfort is so much a part of us, which we of course call guilt, is so much a part of us we don't even know it's there. You are with a stranger, you feel uncomfortable. You are with somebody you don't like, you feel uncomfortable. You end up you haven't shaved for a few days, or you didn't put your makeup on and you feel uncomfortable. Body consciousness. So all these things which seem to be so small, they're eating away at you as discomfort. Okay. So therefore you might say, but Burt, if I clear every discomfort by forgiveness, then I'm forgiving every minute. Yes. Yes. I forgive about 50 times a day. See, but they're very small things. But I want to remain in my balance all the time. And I remain in balance all the time by simply seeing that any discomfort that I feel is because somehow or other I'm going back to being Burt instead of being, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And so by releasing that, I am free. And the moment you feel free, you're back to your natural state. So forgiveness is done many, many times a day, sometimes even 100 times a day. But every time you do it, you're expanding in your sense of freedom. And you become more and more innocent as you grow older, which is a very beautiful thing to see, really, because that innocence is love, just like the puppy, just like the dog, just like anything that's loving for no reason at all. It just loves. I'm waiting for some questions because I've said everything that I thought I could say about the four unknown facts, but it is something that you have to feel it. And you can start feeling it by first asking questions that might be in the way of understanding it. If there's something not clear, please ask.
Well, I have another question.
Okay.
It's
Oh, somebody ask you a question?
yeah. Hi, Burt.
Hi. Who am I speaking?
So, hi.
Deborah. There.
Hi.
Hello. So I very quickly get caught in without realizing that I am.
That's
And
right.
it can be a long time before I realize that I'm caught up.
Absolutely. That's how
and
it happens in the beginning. Yes.
It just happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
So
you talk
when
about
you have
that,
discomfort,
perhaps?
that discomfort is there all the time, but you were not aware of it. It's just like having the vacuum cleaner going all day long. After a while, you're so used to it that when it stops, oh, what silence again, right? So it's the same with discomfort. People are living in that discomfort 24 hours a day, but they're not aware of it. So ask yourself, am I really happy? Am I feel free? Do I feel okay? Am I loving my neighbor? So if you feel something is missing, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. There's nothing ever wrong. What you see is the way you think. That's all. That nothing ever is wrong. See, when I realized that, I became so free. See, always it is your thinking, your feeling. That discomfort is there because you're still thinking you're separate. You're still thinking that you are a person and not a wholeness. You see? The word holiness in spirituality really means wholeness, all of us as one. So therefore, you might say, Bert, now I realized I had this discomfort. My gosh, and you start going against yourself. Right away, you're added more. No. The moment you become aware of your discomfort, say, oh, thank you for making me aware. You see? And get in touch with it. The moment you start getting in touch with your discomfort, you are loving yourself enough to look at it. Well, the moment you start looking at it, you begin to find how beautiful you really are. The things you love, the things you enjoy doing, the moments of freedom, breathing fresh air, you know. So therefore, if you are aware, right now you became aware that there's discomfort, wow, that's beautiful. Take time to be still and see where that discomfort is. Is it when I meet somebody, when I am doing this or doing that? You see, get in touch with it, and then every time you feel it, forgive it. And you forgive it by looking at it as it actually is, not as something wrong, but as something that you need to learn to let go. The moment you start to let go, that is the beginning of arriving. Now, again, I'm using words. There's nowhere to arrive. You're already there, but at least you begin to know that you're there, you see? And you know that you're there because you begin to feel this love coming to you. You feel good. You feel so good because you're filled with this love that never leaves you. And that is the very nature of you. That is the nature of healing. Did you know that when you have love in your heart, every organ of your body, every cell of your body is working perfectly? But the moment there is fear, there is disruption. And that disruption can lead to problems, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. But you're perfect in your spiritual sense, in who you are. And so that is the key. Do you have anything more to say, or?
But it seems to be that it's around anxiety, just functioning in the world, the trying to stay with
That's right.
the work that I do, I turn around and there's 30 more emails, and it's always on top. And
Yes. What work do you do?
I haven't approached it from forgiveness, though.
Yeah, this is the whole point, that if you say, well, I'm getting so many emails, well, you still have to do them, right? So you take a few deep breaths, forgive yourself for getting angry at them, and do as many as you can. And at that point, even if you quit in the middle of them, you still don't feel guilty because you've given time to love yourself enough to relax. You see? So all the point, this is what we have to do. Be aware all the time, to be as easy with ourselves as possible, because you are all you have, and the spirit self that you are is perfect. So by tuning into it, it has all the knowledge to guide you. That knowledge, you see, is you can feel it. Just like I wrote the book, The Four Unknown Facts of Reality. When I wrote the book, I began to actually hear the voice, and it guided me step by step. I wouldn't stop for anything, not even to go to the washroom sometimes, because I didn't want to lose it. But I found it kept there until the book was finished. And by doing that, yes, I paid a price for it because I didn't eat and I didn't sleep. And my eyes got burned out by looking at the screen for 7 whole days non-stop typing. But it was worth the price, because then I lied down and some sight returned and I was back to normal. But boy, was I ever happy to finish it. I told my publisher about it. She just loved it. And she printed it right away within 2 weeks or so. Oh, no, you don't remember, right?
No,
This
I
was-
wasn't with you then.
That's what you weren't with me, right? Right. But anyway, so they're not asking me questions, Han, but I know that they have questions. So could you tell me some of what you think they would be asking?
I had a question about, in your book, you talk about unconscious trust and you talk about negative unconscious trust. Is that the same as beliefs, or what is that exactly?
Unconscious trust is a belief.
So negative unconscious trust is a belief that we're not aware is guiding us throughout the day. And
That's right. We are being led by unconscious belief that is destructive. Right. And we have so many beliefs. You know, Buddha said one time, he said, if you are to follow my path, you've got to give up every belief. Can you imagine that? Every belief has to go until your mind is silent, until you are empty. And so that's quite a tall order, but at least you get the message that as long as the mind is involved in thinking, not creative thought is a beautiful thing. But creative thought is it doesn't happen usually, because if you start listening to your heart, creative thought happens automatically. Just like writing the book, I didn't write it, but because I wanted to answer the questions, it happened, you see? So in the same way, begin to trust, and that's where the trust comes in. Start to trust that the I am of you is you can call it the Holy Spirit in you. You see, guiding you all the time. Does that answer your question?
that does, yes. So we have another
There's
question.
several questions now, Burt, and Deborah, I think, has another question. Go ahead.
Or Miriam.
No longer. Okay.
Miriam.
Miriam is next. Go ahead.
Hi. I talked to you yesterday. It was lovely. It
Oh, hi.
put some love inside. Hi. What you're saying about discomfort and not getting all involved in it. I'm not sure if I've got it right, but forgive for it.
Okay, first of all, if right now you are not sure whether there's discomfort or not, okay, but the very fact that you're asking the question means that there might be something there that is not quite comfortable, okay, that's fine. So yeah, so begin to allow yourself to feel it. You might need to maybe close your eyes for a moment and just feel how you feel. It's very, very subtle. If you feel that discomfort, say thank you. This is very important. Gratitude is one of the great things that drive us very, very far into knowing, into knowledge. So always be grateful for whatever happens. Now, the moment you're grateful that you know that there's discomfort, okay, just give a little, like a prayer or like a word, say, help me here to see what needs to be corrected here. And until it becomes clear. And believe you me, I guarantee you that by your sincerity to want to know, it will start happening. You will start coming to know almost like that, right?
No, it's not working, because what ends up happening is then I have a thought. Oh, maybe it's this. Oh, maybe it's that. And this is what caused it. And this is what you need to do about it. It leads me on this trail of thinking that takes me away
That's
from
the discomfort. Yes, that's the discomfort right there. Discomfort is always using logic. It's always trying to make sense out of something. It's always trying to figure things out. If you're caught in that, not knowing what it is, it's okay. Just be with that unawareness of it. The fact that you know there's discomfort is all right. You don't have to define it. The definition will come more and more as you become more aware. Awareness is always there, but we block it by our own lack of trust. Well, the moment you start to trust that there's a power in you that knows better than you personally, okay? The moment you start to trust it, it will come clear what it is you are doing. And somehow it will come to you. You could be going to bed, you could be going for a walk, you could be taking your dog out. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever you're doing, it comes, oh, that's what it is. Don't try to figure it out because you get lost in thought.
I agree. One more question. Does this work with physical pain and discomfort as well as psychological?
Yes. All physical pain and discomfort comes from the mind, even though it feels very physical. It is caused by the mind, by the thinking, you see? They have a mental cause. And as a matter of fact, even the Course of Miracles says that, right? Yeah.
All sicknesses of the mind.
Yeah, all sicknesses of the mind. And so by becoming aware of that, you know, you can still take an aspirin if there's some pain. There is nothing wrong with that. But don't give in to drugs if you can help it, because drugs creating another dynamic in the body. And this means that when you take a drugs to heal something, the drugs might ease the pain, but it creates havoc in another area of the body, which does not want to have it or wants to eject it or whatever, you see? So the more drugs you take, the more you fall into the game of pain and discomfort. So allow nature to take its course. And yeah, sometimes you might, for example, you have a headache or a backache, then you take an aspirin, that's fine. But don't get caught in it, knowing that there's an answer and it's helping you to progress. The moment you start surrendering to that part in you, to the trust that there's an intelligence in you that knows, we are far greater than we can even imagine. When you start trusting this part in you, it will start to come. It can come in a dream, it can come in a hunch, it can come in so many ways. You begin to listen to it. As you begin to listen to it, you begin to teach yourself, you see? But everybody has this discomfort within them. Everybody. And this is why, and it's caused by thinking you're a body. The moment you believe you're a body, immediately you believe that you're separate from other people. The moment you believe you're from other people, you start judging them, you start criticizing them, you start thinking this is wrong, this is right. And before you know it, you are creating this in you. Because whatever you think about another, you're thinking about yourself. Okay, so she's gone now.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was I helpful?
I'm here.
No? Did it help?
Thank you.
Did it help?
I'll work with it.
Good.
work
That's
with
what
it.
I need to hear. Okay, good.
It's not an instant fix, but I
Right.
will work with it.
Work with it, please. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Pete, you have a question?
Yes, I was just waiting in case someone else had one first. You mentioned Rajan, you probably like Ram does, don't necessarily associate like mushrooms or psychedelics with medical drugs. So I wonder what your view is on that as a tool, I guess, for people to awareness or on their
Okay,
journey.
in the 60s, many people used to take drugs to have a higher consciousness, to have a higher experience. Okay, but it never led to final knowing. It never led to clarity. Okay, and there's a danger in it because it plays havoc with your brain. and start creating hallucinations and other images that you begin to believe are real. And so there's a danger, yes. So it's best to stay away from anything artificial. You know, for example, there's a drug. It's known as marijuana. That's not so dangerous. That seems to be okay. But I think all other drugs have a certain danger in them, because when you start to rely on something outside of you, you're not trusting yourself enough, and so
I want about that, like for times gone by, tribes have used leaves or mushroom plant-based to guide. But I understand in those tribes, they would add properties that would make them sick so that you wouldn't go enjoy it. That was a way to stop the addiction. But the learning happened. I completely agree with you that there is an indulgence with drugs. But I wonder, do you still, I know we're in a public platform here, but I wonder what your feeling is with the re-emergence using mushrooms, not any synthetics, as a way to heal people,
I
guide
cannot
them
tell you
on their
about
journey.
mushrooms because I've never taken them. Okay, so I don't know the dangers of them or anything like that. But in my personal way of thinking is that I'd rather not take anything artificial. I believe in my own inner power. I believe in inner trust. Yeah. So in that case, this is all I can say. There have been cases where people have been helped, but for how long, I don't know, and how much. The people who have awakened fully and spiritually always did it in the most natural way, without any artificial means. Yeah.
Frank has a question.
Oh,
Go ahead, Frank.
hey, Burt and Susie.
Hi, Frank.
So, hi. So my question was, you know, a lot of people have figured out their blocks and stuff when they've had an NDE, because like when they're away from their mind, they can see things a lot more clearly.
That's right.
So, you know, they're able to figure out the like problems in their life that they don't see usually. And I guess
Yeah.
even when people take drugs, it kind of silences the mind so that they're able to see, like ayahuasca, for example, that, you know, people go on some shamanic experience, you know, in order to quiet the mind so that they can see clear what's blocking them.
But
You know,
sometimes
for example, like
anything,
Anita Morja.
yeah, anything artificial, even
Yeah.
ayahuasca, which is highly spoken of by many people, even that I wouldn't recommend, because it's still an artificial way of gaining any knowledge. The best way to gain knowledge is by simply your own. Remember one thing, and when you remember this, you won't need anything outside of you. You are complete as you are, because you and I are one. Every person you see is we're all one being. We're all one being. So all knowledge available is within you. Yes, might take longer, and you can do it faster with like ayahuasca. But the point, you never know for sure how it's going to affect you. Maybe you're not ready for it. Maybe you think in a certain way that's going to affect the way you think. So we never know how it's going to play in our system, because our system is very delicate and it's built upon, oh my God, the whole system is built on so many beliefs and so many energies, you know, so how is it going to be affected by anything from outside is it's almost impossible to know. So you're always taking risk. My way of thinking is, do not take a risk. It's not worth it. All knowledge can come to you by simply listening to I am. And the I am is perfect knowledge. It is your own heart, incidentally. When you stop and really listen, it comes to you automatically, whether it's something loving or whether it's something that's going to benefit you. And you learn to trust that. That is the highest trust. That is the trust in the unknown facts of reality, the fourth one.
Yes, and you know natural, and you can trust that you've discovered it on your own.
Yes,
So you know that it's true and accurate.
yes,
Some hallucination or caused by a psychedelic. It's if you come
Yeah.
up with it yourself, then you know that it's true.
yeah. Yeah, first of all, when you experience the light, you were talking about NDEs, right? NDEs
Yes, Anita
experience.
Moorjani's
Yeah.
book. Yeah, I was reading
Yeah,
Anita
for example,
Moorjani's book.
Anita Moorjani is a very case, like her cancer was so advanced. You know, her every inch of her body had a swelling. She was dying in agony, but yet, and this is the beautiful thing, is that if she loves herself enough, and she was told in the spirit realm, when she loves herself completely and accepts herself, she'll be healed. And she believed, knowing that, yeah, by loving myself completely, because I am one with all, the moment I go back to my body, I'll heal. She knew it. She went back to the body, very, very sick woman. And all of a sudden, she started talking to people. Now, they gave her only a few hours to live. They came back and they found her more alive than ever. And she healed completely. She healed something that baffled doctors. Okay. But there are so many cases, excuse me, there's so many cases like that. When you go out of the body, you enter the realm of the highest knowledge. And everything is not kept from you. All knowledge is known to you when you are in the spirit realm. I know because I was in the spirit realm. I don't remember as I go back to the body, I forget many of the things that I saw. But the point is that at that moment, everything is clear to you. And most people don't want to come back to Earth because the one thing they all say, I was at home. See, the light is your home, is your where you belong, really, where you came from. And of course, you were never born, you always were. I remember you too, about 1 billion years ago. I'm just kidding.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you, thank you. Is this Wade?
That's Wade.
Is he there?
Nope, he's not. That's his photo.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the write-up, the idea that I'm not the doer, or the idea that I don't have free will, and there's nothing I can do to accelerate this awakening or to come to this realization. The idea of forgiveness or trust, is that an act of doing of some kind, or at what level is that done at the
Yes.
level of, is that the mind?
It is an active thing of forgiving that, because we keep limiting ourselves. Oh, this is so hard. Oh, I have to do this for a long time. Oh, it's going to take a long time to be. See, we're always thinking in terms of time and even space. Time more, oh, it's going to take a long time. No, it doesn't take time. It is a matter of how much you trust it.
Mhm.
And when you trust it, you let it go. And that's it. And it's just like when I was writing the book and the voice was talking to me, in the beginning, I argued with it. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm arguing with myself. Yeah, could it be?
And you were arguing with the word emptiness? Or
And
what
I was arguing with whatever voice it was, Holy Spirit or my own spirit or other being that took over. I'm not sure. But I know that I didn't write it. I was just the instrument of it. And so I trusted it. The moment I trusted it, oh, it was so relaxing.
So as you wrote it, you kind of went through the process yourself during the writing, in a way.
The writing was all done by spirit, yes, by whatever I think was using me to do this work. Yeah. I don't have perfect answer of who or what because the mind always wants to know specifically, was it a person, was it a woman, was it a man, was it, you know.
Mhm.
But what it was is that I heard this voice compelling me, and I had no choice actually. But I wanted to do it. I wanted more than anything to do it. And I enjoyed it. Now I wish that maybe I would have to rewrite it someday or whatever, but I don't know. But the point is that eventually everybody who uses this book will be able to be the master of themselves.
Oh, Pete has another question.
I hope I'm not stretching the friendship by asking so many questions, but I wondered about discomfort in meditation, whether during or towards it. I think it's something I know that I experience and my friends have expressed too. If you could share any insight or practical ways to approach this,
And meditation?
please.
Yeah.
Discomfort?
Yeah,
meditation?
yeah, meditation to me is a very natural thing. But what's happening with me very often, and although I corrected it lately, I used to put my feet up, on a stool, and then I wanted to be comfortable, so I put the blinds on and I concentrate on my third eye and I go into emptiness and I feel wonderful, wonderful. But what happens that after a while, the sleep takes over and my head starts to fall forward and I got a little groggy. So now I put my feet planted firmly on the ground. I put my back perfectly straight, concentrate on here and picture just the darkness that is there. But at the same time, you'll find that after a while, as you concentrate on the spot, a light will appear. Now, that light means that there's an energy moving in you. We can call it Kundalini, you can call it anything that doesn't matter. Something is happening, which is creating balance in your life, creating an equanimity, a perfect ease of being. And the moment you start to trust it, this is what you learn to do, to trust that. Some people don't like meditation, but if you have quiet moments, if you prefer to do it with some light music that is very extremely beautiful, and so there are many ways in which you can enter meditation. But it's important because you start getting in touch with that silence, that emptiness that is inside you. And when your mind starts thinking too much, don't try to stop it. There's nothing that activates the mind faster than trying to stop it. Okay? So when the mind is very busy, allow it to be, and then return back to the blankness of the spot between the eyebrows. Is that answering your question, or am I going off course here?
Yes, thank you, Burt. It's wonderful. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything at all about the four unknown facts that still baffles you, that you're not clear about? So you're all very clear?
Clear enough.
Perhaps we all have enough to sit on it and contemplate what you said and share the Burt. Or there may be some questions as a result of that.
I welcome any questions anytime. Yeah. And incidentally,
I don't have any questions. I'm not asking any questions, but you just, I just feel you. I feel you. So you, and
well,
that's
thank
it.
you.
So, but don't, the no questions, it's a good thing.
It's a what?
It's a good thing. I feel
It's
the
a
same way.
big- Yes, oh yes, yes, definitely. I just want to know that everybody is getting it. Yeah.
Love it, love it.
Oh, you're beautiful. Thank you.
Mm. Well, so maybe we can come to a close for today.
Okay.
Okay.
And thank you again, Burt, for sharing something that is really one simple distillation of what you have found to be important.
Thank you.
And to you that you're sharing, and that you are living from.
Hmm.
So we'll see each other tomorrow again.
Tomorrow
At
again.
the same time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And
Is there anything you'd like to say about tomorrow, Burt?
is there a subject
is
that
there
you
anything particular
specifically
you want to touch
feel
on
I could
tomorrow?
talk about? Or do I continue the way we were going?
I think tomorrow's topic originally was oneness.
Well,
and-
I'm asking you whether you have any particular in mind
Actually,
for
any
tomorrow.
any spiritual subject that you can think of, I would love to talk about. But if you don't have anything, then we go on from what we had in mind, right? Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I hope we can keep in mind what Burt was sharing today, and perhaps prepare some questions, or see whether there's any questions that come to mind or any comments that come to mind, so that tomorrow it's the last opportunity tomorrow, and have Burt go into it.
Yeah. Oh, and
And that way make
incidentally,
best use of our
yeah,
time.
we'll be doing, Susie and I will be doing weekly videos.
A Zoom series.
A Zoom series,
Starting in
yeah.
March, yeah, on
Yeah.
on the evolution of love.
Yeah, that's right, on the evolution of love.
Mhm.
The one subject I never stop working on or working with is love. Love to me is the only truth, the only law, the perfection of being. So what we call God is really love, unconditional love itself.
Well, this is a message of non-duality for sure, which is
Yes,
what
yes.
you're really looking at, isn't
Yeah,
it, this
oneness
weekend?
is non-duality itself. Yes, yeah, we're all part of each
Mhm.
other. Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, thank you all.
Thank you. See everybody tomorrow.
All right.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you.